can just get your mind together and come on across to me. We'll hold hands and we'll watch the sun rise from the bottom of the sea. But first, are you experienced?
Now, there has to be a place for everybody in society. You know, if you fall off the cliff, you end up down here. Society needs to help you, look after you, get you back up to the top again. Yet it seems like in this day and age, society just doesn't care enough to do anything about it, do something good about it. And you'll see that the organisation that has created laws and documents that prevent people moving from country to country. You'll see now we've got these funny floating barges with the 500 people who've come over here from foreign lands because of the karma of the English. The English went to these lands and they taught them English. They taught them to read and write, okay? And I've lived in these lands. I've been to Africa, lived in a little mud hut and seen the extent of the problem. I know what the problem is. And there's no future for these people there because there are no jobs. Okay, there are no jobs for reading and writing. If you train people to read and write, they're going to go where the reading and the writing is required. And that's to England, to the people who cause the problem, the EU, Britain, Germany, France, all these countries have been inundated with refugees, and they're refugees from the mess that they made in Africa. That's basically what it is. And they disturbed the natural order over there, and now it's finished. You know, once you start this education process, you're stuck with it. And these people don't even have a screwdriver in the house. You know, they've got no tools. It's not like us, we've got our tools, we can do our stuff. They've got no tools, they can't afford to buy any tools, they can't afford to buy anything. They didn't need tools, and they've lost the ability to make tools. And that needs to come back, yeah. And in an individualist society, which they almost still have there, that can come back, yeah. People can go over to Africa and create the farm and start to make a community based around the principles outlined in the Individualist Manifesto and teach apprentices how to make tools, okay? Once that happens, then they can make everything else and all the other guilds can form, and they can be self-supporting, self-sufficient. Instead, the globalists are going to just taught them how to read and write so that they can indoctrinate them and bring in their political system to oppress them. Now, the whole of Africa is sad. It's sad, yeah. They have no place anymore because their place has been taken away from them. I'll tell you a story here because I spent a lot of time in Africa. I went there by bicycle, the longest journey I ever made in my life. Most difficult through the Sahara Desert, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of miles. And I ended up in a place called Sarah Mamadou. Now, Sarah Mamadou, Sarah is my boat name, and Mamadou is the way of the mother. Sarah, come into God, come into the creative and the way of the mother. This is like the balance of everything. This is like the place where you belong, if you like. That, the Marian maiden, okay, the symbol for this. Okay, so I met a man in this place, a very great master of metalworking, a welder. He could do everything possible to do with car repairs, metal, anything to do with metal, axles, wheels, anything to do with that. He could fix. So if you ran over a pothole and your axle broke, he could fix it and get you back on the road. Now, they don't have any money in Africa, so you can only charge very, very small amounts for these jobs. And what happened is the Chinese came over there, and they wanted to make some pipeline or something, and so they wanted to pay like hardly any money, not a lot of money, but enough just to live on, basically. And to get people like this who were living in a village and on a road where vehicles broke down and stuff like that, and they had to help everybody who came along, they just take them away and put them on some pipeline and get them to weld there. And it was like complete slavery, complete slavery. But this guy went from a free, independent master, if you like, to just having to weld all day in the sun. Now, if you can imagine a metallic pipeline, the heat of the African sun, like, you can't work there in the sun, it's just too hot. You know, they grow mangoes there, yeah? It's just like incredibly hot. And it's not possible to just weld all day in the sun. And it's not like 8 hours, it's like 16-hour days and stuff like that, yeah, for a very small amount of money. And so I learned about this from him. And he was struggling to stay out of that system. You know, what would the people do without him anyway? But there was no money, the people had no money to pay for his services, yeah. It's a super, super, super difficult problem. And a lot of people like him have just given up and they've just headed for Europe, yeah, because what's the point, yeah? And that's not the right thing to do at all, not the right thing. It's necessary to create a functioning divine civil society that looks after everybody. Everybody needs to have a place, not like survival of the fittest. That's a demonic concept. That's what happens in wasps' nests, you know? So there needs to be a place for the rich and the poor, but also the sad and the happy. And so, for example, people who would have taken the Chinese option and gone welding, they wouldn't have been happy, you know? They wouldn't have been happy because, not because of the job, but because they've been told what to do and forced into the servitude of it. And so they wouldn't feel good. Their light would be taken away. Whereas the other guy, he's also working in the sun, he's working 16-hour days, but he's helping people fix their cars and stuff like that that break down on the road. And so he's happy because he's his own free man, master, doing what he loves. And all the time he's got some problem that he has to overcome. I watch this guy solve problems. You're like, I have no idea what they do in Africa to actually fix things. They've got no tools. You know, a bicycle comes along, you need all these special tools to take off the crank. You know, they'll spend 5 hours getting the crank off a bicycle just with a hammer, you know. You have no idea. And these are masters of what they do. You know, you wouldn't be able to do it. If you were given the tools that they were, you wouldn't be able to do it. It wouldn't matter how great an engineer you were. You just wouldn't be able to do it. Yeah. And so they're faced with the technology that's been imported from these foreign lands. And their schools have been infiltrated and they've been forced to learn higher education that's got no purpose in these lands. And now they're all coming here. And does anybody understand that in our government? Not a single living soul. I'm sitting there on my own, looking at all this, knowing everything, but there's no door to knock on. There's no door to go and say, you need to hear this, guys. And then the respect, okay, come in. Now, what do you know? Okay, wow, you better do something about it. They all think they know it all, but they're just children. They're all just children. Most of them are under 30 these days, they haven't learned anything. You know? They're just squabbling amongst themselves. There's a song about this. What's that song? It might come to me. 'cause they're top of the pile. Doesn't mean their vision is the clearest. The voices of the people falling on their fears. As politicians all become careerists. They must declare their income, but not their company cars. Is there more to a seat in Parliament than sitting on your arse? And the best of all this bad bunch is shouting to be heard above the sound of ideologies clashing. God bless the citizens, the nation's saving grace. As we expect democracy, they're laughing in our face. And as our cries get louder, laughter gets louder still. Above the sound of ideologies clashing. They must declare their income, but not their company cars. Is there more to a seat in Parliament than sitting on your arse? And the best of all this bad bunch is shouting to be heard